This is the Project Management Podcast. We bring project management topics to beginners and experts. Find us on the web at www.thepmpodcast.com or send your emails to pmpodcast@gmail.com.
Hello and welcome to episode number 112. I am Cornelius Fichtner. This is the Project Management Podcast for the 9th of January 2009. Nice to have you with us. Today we are going to look at Kanban. Kanban is a concept related to lean and just-in-time production. The Japanese word Kanban is a common everyday term meaning signboard or billboard, and it really lacks the specialized meaning that this word has acquired in English. According to Taiichi Ohno, the man credited with developing just-in-time, Kanban is a means through which just-in-time is achieved. It was out of the need to maintain a high level of improvement that the Kanban system was developed by Toyota. Kanban became an effective tool to support the running of the production system as a whole. In addition, it proved to be an excellent way for promoting improvements because reducing the number of Kanban in circulation highlighted problem areas. In project management, Kanban can be described as a signaling system that triggers action. We welcome Eric Landis on the program today, and we get a wonderful introduction to Kanban. We discuss what Kanban is, what its benefits are, how it overlaps with project management, what you see when walking into a Kanban environment, if it works in an environment where no physical products are produced, and we introduce you to a great number of resources. In just a moment, I am going to introduce you to yet another great resources. This one is for project management white papers and comes to us from Australia. But first, I want to make you aware that you can win a PM lecture that will teach you how to become a project leader. As you know, one of our sister websites is pmlectures.com. And this week we released two such new lectures. One by Stan Lewandowski, who was on the program just a couple of weeks ago. This one is called Leadership Challenges on Complex Project. And the second one, that is the one that you can win, is called The Strategic Project Leader. It is by Jack Ferraro, whom we had on the program in episode 98. There is only one qualification that is required for winning this lecture right now, and that is that you need to be on Twitter. You need to have a Twitter account. Twitter is a social networking site that you can find at twitter.com. If you have an account on Twitter, then go ahead and follow me. My handle is at Cornelius Ficht, and take a look at the messages that I will write in the coming few days. You will see instructions for participating and for winning that copy. And if you're not on Twitter, well, then don't worry. All listeners of the Project Management Podcast will get a chance shortly to win a copy as well. But you can take a shot at winning right now if you are indeed a Twitterer. And now, as promised, I have another gizmo for you, and then we head into the interview with Eric. I think that I have found probably the largest free collection of project management white papers from you. And of all places, it is located in Australia. So here is Neville Turbit from Project Perfect, and he is going to tell us all about it. Hello, Neville, and thank you very much for coming on the program.
Good morning, Cornelius. Pleasure to speak to you from sunny Sydney, where it's 29 degrees.
Wonderful, and I'm in sunny California, where it's probably about the same temperature.
Except I'm Celsius.
Your website, projectperfect.com.au, offers a great number of project management-related white papers. How did you get into writing them?
Well, it was interesting. I've always been interested in, and I was one of those kids at school who could never tell a conjunction from a preposition, and so I managed to get through my English by being able to write great essays that got me the marks that compensated for my lack of grammar. So when I'd left school, I always did some more writing, but many years ago I was involved in doing some project management training, and I used to run a 3-day course, and the handouts to students were really just a whole series of PowerPoint slides. So around that I started to write a whole lot of training notes, and that seemed to be successful, and it's sort of grown from there. So I've been writing those articles for the website for many years now.
Mm-hmm. How many papers do you have, and what topics do they cover?
We've got, I'm not sure of the exact number, but it's well over 100. And a couple of years ago, we said it was just getting too big, so we had to reorganize it. And we've split it up into the traditional PMBOK areas of scope, time, resources. So we've got topics in those areas. We then had another group which we called other project-related activities, which is things like governance metrics, planning and tracking, project management and project officers, undertaking project reviews. And then the third group, which was the activities that are undertaken in a project. So we have sections for things like project initiation and business case, benefits, preparing requirements, and software selection and purchase.
I assume the site is 100% targeted at project managers looking for information, right?
Yes, we do make that clear to people who want to submit white papers, that first of all, it's not commercial. We're not out there to promote any products or services. And the second thing is that we are aiming directly at project managers. You
mentioned people who want to submit documents. How would they do that? How would they submit a white paper to you?
We have a link on our site for people who want to submit white papers, and there are a couple of caveats we put around it. One is that it has to be in our standard format. We do some editing, and sometimes where English is not a first language for someone, we have to do some work to make it much more readable. But we do get probably at this stage about 30-40% of our white papers are from people who are not part of our organisation, people who are outside it, have read it, and have something to contribute.
So what is the relationship between the white papers and your company, Project Perfect? Do the white papers that you write grow out of your day-to-day work, or how do you come up with ideas for white papers?
Very much so, very much so. We sell project management software, which we developed ourselves, and we also work with a lot of organisations in helping them with their project management. And for a long time I struggled as to how to explain exactly what we did. And then I came up with the term project infrastructure, and that seems to just click with people. It's like putting in place the infrastructure inside an organisation to be able to support projects and to be able to have all the training, the techniques, the processes, the skills, the tools that you need to do project management. What we try and do is to come in and help them put in place a project infrastructure, which no one ever thinks of. But the moment we came up with that term, it immediately gelled with people, and they went, okay, so now I understand what you do. So taking that idea, I've written a couple of white papers around the concept of project infrastructure, and the feedback we've had from people has been fantastic. They said, now I have a way of going to my boss and explaining what the project office is actually trying to do.
Excellent. So hundreds of white paper, or dozens and dozens of white paper at least, available on your website. Would you please finish this off by letting people once again know where they can find these white papers or submit their own white papers if they have any that they'd like to have published?
Okay. If you go to our website at www.projectperfect.com.au, and on the left-hand side you'll see a button which says White Papers, Links and Free Stuff. Now there's a white paper index there. You can go and have a look at all the white papers we have available. If you want to, if you have a white paper you would like to submit, there's a button there that says Contact Us, and you can send us an email. Send us the document and we'll send you back a copy of our publication guidelines, and we'll take it from there. But we're always happy to hear from people, love the feedback that we get from people on our white papers, and look forward to people contributing to it.
Excellent. Neville, thank you so much for being on the program. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Cornelius.
And here is our Gizmos disclaimer. We do not endorse the gizmos that we present in this segment. We just want to tell you that they exist. Use your own judgment. The companies and individuals who are presenting a gizmo here do not pay us for the privilege. And now let's move into our main topic, the discussion on Kanban with Eric Landis. Eric has a long experience implementing global applications using Microsoft technologies with ASP.NET, SharePoint, SQL Server, and reporting services, to name just a few. Eric started his career in IT as a programmer analyst with McGraw-Hill. From here, he moved on as a technical analyst to Richard D. Irvin Incorporated and as a senior programmer analyst at Partners Health Plan. Currently, he is a project manager and project lead at the Robert Bosch Corporation. Here, he is using agile methodology for intranet development. Work includes application development using ASP.NET and C#. Projects include the global EPM solution using Microsoft Project Server 2002 and 2003, reporting services, and SharePoint 2003 and 2007. Another project involved a global initiative to harmonize all compliance departments into one custom application. He led the project to create that application, including customer interaction with the international group of users. During the interview, Eric will mention a number of resources and books, and to make it easy for you, I have added all of them to the helpful resources section of the website. So please stop by at the PM Podcast and click on the helpful resources link of episode 112 to find them. And now, enjoy the interview.
The Project Management Podcasts Feature Interview. Today with Eric Landis, Project Lead for Software Development at Robert Bosch.
Good evening, Eric, and welcome to the Project Management Podcast.
Thanks, Cornelius. It's great to be on here.
We want to talk about Kanban today. Well, let's start out with the simplest and probably also most difficult question. What is Kanban?
A great question, Cornelius. It's a good way to get started. Really, and if you look on Wikipedia, when you look that up, it's going to tell you Kanban is, in Japanese, means a visual card or visual board. Kanban really started, if you look on there, it'll say it's a token word or a loan word, and has become to mean more than that, especially in manufacturing in the U.S., and has been really associated with lean movement. And Kanban really, in my mind, means, at this point, it's a visual card or a token that represents some kind of work, to be succinct.
Okay, well, we'll get to that visual card and token in a moment. Let's stay with the basics for now, and let's look at how it was developed and by whom was Kanban originally developed.
Right. Originally, from my understanding, is that it was developed from the Toyota system, the Toyota production system. A lot of people have heard about that, and what a great system it is for manufacturing. So it was really developed in the manufacturing process by Toyota, and the Kanban visual board or whatever is used on manufacturing floors. Probably the most common use, although it has spread out in other places, but originally developed by the Toyota folks and for their Toyota production system. So a lot of that, you might have heard of JIT, just in time, all developed by, and I'm going to butcher the name, but Taiichi Ohno, I believe, is really who it's credited with. And really most people are going to associate it with Toyota originally, and now has spread to a lot of other manufacturing folks.
Yes, that's also my understanding. Kanban originally developed for the manufacturing side of a business. However, you in your area, you are in software development. So it's obvious that Kanban can be used for software development. So how then does Kanban relate to the agile software development methods that are used where you are?
That's a great question. Kanban really is kind of in its infancy when you relate it to software development. If you know the Agile and the Agile Manifesto, if you've heard of that, and anybody who's done software development, Agile's the big buzzword now. And what a lot of people are doing is bringing lean concepts into Agile. So what Agile means, we originally had the waterfall method, and waterfall was you get the big requirements up front. You've got to get your requirements nailed before you do software development. Then you throw it over the wall to software development. They work on it. Software development throws it over the wall to about 6 months later or a year later or whatever. They throw it over the wall to the testing guys. Testing guys find a bunch of bugs, throw it back to the software guys who, that's kind of the way waterfall worked. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Cornelius.
Yes, I am. That's the way I've developed software most of my career.
Okay. So what Agile said is, wow, what we've noticed is when we develop this way, when we give the actual software to the people who requested it, they actually want other stuff too, and we weren't able to get all the requirements at the end. So the Agile movement came about because some of the leaders of that movement, guys like Ron Jeffries, Kent Beck is associated with that, and some of the guys' names I'm kind of blanking out now, but Alistair, and I'm forgetting his last name, but a lot of guys, David Anderson, those guys. I
was just going to mention him as well. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those guys did the Agile Manifesto and came up with an idea that, instead of processes, we want to put people first, or we want to honor people over processes. I shouldn't say put them first, but the process is subject to the people. And we want to deliver working software often is probably one of the biggest ideas to come out of Agile. And so what that meant is instead of waiting 6 months and delivering software, they were going to do something called iterative development. And so I'm going to develop my software, let's say in a month. I'm going to do a software development for a month. I'm going to deliver a smaller set of features than I might have if we did it the waterfall method, but I'm going to get feedback from the customer. And the other thing is we want to get a lot of feedback from the customer on the software. So after, let's say, a month or 2 weeks, we developed every 2 weeks. We did our iterations every 2 weeks. We get feedback from the customer, and the customer can say, I want you to work on this other feature, the one that you were going to work on, we're going to change on you. So it really gives them the ability to change what they wanted as you're developing the software and deploying it. The other thing is you want to make sure your software is releasable whenever you show it to the customer. So the customer could say, wow, these aren't all the features I asked for originally, but I can live with what you have, so let's just release that and see how it goes for a while, and then maybe we'll come back and we'll make some changes.
Okay, so we have the difference now between waterfall methodology and Agile. Now, how does Agile and Kanban, how do they interact?
Well, I did mention the iteration, and with the Kanban, really, I've just noticed it in the past year, people using it, and really started with David Anderson, as we mentioned his name earlier. I think some other folks might have done it at the same time or before. Mary Poppendick is I don't know if she used Kanban, but she was a big proponent of lean methods in Agile. And basically what Kanban does is it takes the idea of a Kanban board, and it takes that idea of delivering to your customer quickly and puts that into a continuous flow. So
let's take a step back quickly here, because
sure.
Many of the listeners may not know what a Kanban board is. So let's start there. What is a Kanban board?
All right. Well, in our instance, where I'm at with Robert Bosch, in our department in Bosch, this isn't everywhere in Bosch, but it is in our department. We have a board that will have change requests on it.
That's a whiteboard, right?
Yes, it's an actual physical board, where ours are movable, but it could be anything. The whole idea is it's visible to your team, wherever your team happens to be. And on that board, the way we do it, you have what we call silos, and you have, or queues or buffers, you could call them. And in each one, your Kanban card or token is going to go through each of those process or silos or processes. So, for instance, in software development, you're going to take the card, and first, and maybe we'll get into this a little later, but you'll put it into, let's say, business analysis. Then it'll move to actual development, and it'll move to testing once you've developed it, and then on to actually deploying out to production.
And what does the card represent from the perspective of the software that is developed?
It's usually going to be a feature, or some people might call it a story. I've gotten discussions on what the difference is between a feature and a story, but
I see. So what happens is the customer comes to you and gives you, say, 3 features. Mm-hmm. That means you would create 3 cards and put them up on the board, and then you can visually follow these cards through the system, and at any given time you know where in your processes, in your flow, each feature is. Is that kind of sort of
right
the idea?
That's okay. Exactly it. And one of the things I didn't mention on the board, and most teams will do this, you have to put some limits on what goes into your board. So I think there's a lot of different ways to do it, in my opinion. I think other people would say there's, maybe they may disagree with me on this. But I would say you want to put limits or constraints on the different, what I call silos. We may have some other terms for that. So that the whole idea with the Kanban is you're visually seeing the flow, and you're also able to see any constraints or any problems, and you're able to act on them quicker than you might in some other instances.
Okay, so these limits would be something along the lines of the customer has 25 new features that he wants within the next month, but we know exactly that due to personnel restrictions, our business analysts are only able to handle 20.
Right.
That kind of restriction?
Exactly. So you may have, on the Kanban, you may say on the Kanban board we can only have, 10 features at a time. And when it goes to, like you said, with business analysts can only handle, there's only 3 of them, so they can only have 3 at a time in there. One of the other concepts is no multitasking. We're trying to keep context switching down. So those are some concepts we throw in there too. I don't know that they would necessarily be called Kanban, but I think they're all part of the lean ideas that go into it, and agile ideas.
So what happens then? Let's take the example of one feature that's currently worked on by one of your business analysts. So that goes up on the board in that particular bucket. Mm-hmm. Now, the business analyst is done.
Mm-hmm.
he's ready, this particular feature has been analyzed, it can now move on to the next bucket. How does it move from his to the next?
Well, that's where, in theory, he should be able to just take that, move it to development, because there should be a slot open in development, or the queue should be open. Now, if you have limits on there, and the limit is reached, and he cannot move it, or he or she, then they need to come up. You can almost say something akin to stop the line, which is another manufacturing idea, which in manufacturing, if something happens on the production line and you can't move your item to the next part of the production line, you stop the line and you fix the problem. Here in a Kanban and software development, if I can't move my token from business analysis to development, I need to get with the developers, talk to the management. We need to figure out why we've reached that limit. It may be, like you said, personnel. It may be that we bit off more than we could chew on one of these features. A lot of other things, but you want to figure. The idea here is this should always be flowing at a constant flow, and if it's not, then we are finding some problems, and we're using some continuous improvement methods to figure out how to fix those problems. So we're constantly trying to fix our process and improve it. And that's one of the, in my mind, one of the big improvements on Kanban development is I think it gives you a lot of incentive to continuously improve your process.
Okay. If I interpret what I heard correctly, then the primary intention is to make sure that you have a continuous flow of your Kanban cards, which of course represent software development features from the beginning to the end, pretty much without stopping.
Correct.
Right? So if I go back to the original place where this was developed, manufacturing, Toyota, manufacturing cars, you want to have a continuous flow of parts that are used to build your cars from the suppliers through the supply chain to your plant where the cars are built, to the actual worker who needs bolt number 640 in about an hour to screw it into the car. So you want to make sure that there is a constant flow of all that is needed in order to produce whatever it is that you are producing.
That's correct. And I should add that you really can't achieve continuous flow in our software development. What we're really doing is a pull system. So what you might do is you might have 3 developers, let's say, taking our business analysis idea, and the business analyst has a buffer that they can put their next ticket into. So if a developer, let's say all 3 developers should be working on something. So the business analysis analyst takes their card, puts it in the buffer, and they have a buffer constraint of, 2, let's say. I'm not sure. I'm just throwing out numbers there.
Yes.
So, but the idea is when developer moves his to the next silo, whatever that is, or next station, he can go and pull the next card. And
from the buffer.
So it's not exactly a continuous flow, but it's trying. The whole idea is that flow is very predictable. Not a lot of variance in the size of things and in the work that's being done. So from a management perspective, you can start getting very predictable about what kind of features you can deliver and when you can deliver them.
Right, because it's pretty visual, I would assume. Everything is right there on the board, and you can see what's happening, which feature is where. And if a customer really wants to know what's going on, they can pretty much just stand in front of the board, take a look at it, and they see where things are at.
Right, that's exactly right. And the other thing we try and do is give them a visual representation electronically. So customers, you don't always have the luxury of having your customers on site with you.
Yes.
So we allow them to view reports that mimic the Kanban board over our intranet. So you can achieve some of that. It's the Kanban boards I found are best when you can see them physically, but we can also kind of simulate it electronically, and it's not as good as being there, but it does give you the idea.
I assume in your case, the team is co-located in the same area. What happens in a Kanban situation when your team is not co-located? When you outsourced, say, your development, and that someone else is doing that for you? How does that work? Have you had a situation like that?
I can't say that I have. I have seen some examples. For instance, David Anderson, who kind of originated this, actually did, I don't know if you want to call it consulting, but when he was at Microsoft, he did a similar situation where the manager was located, I believe, in Redmond, and the developers were in India, and they employed a very similar kind of system to a Kanban. I wouldn't say it was a Kanban, but in my mind, what you need to do is you're going to have this information electronically. One thing you need to do is have constant communication, something like a daily stand-up meeting where everybody discusses what they do. Now, that's an agile term.
I was just going to say, that sounds more like an agile term.
And it is. And in the Kanban, the difference with Kanban is that the daily stand-up for Agile, everybody talks, and everybody says, this is what I'm doing today, this is what I did yesterday, and if I have anything blocking me, I need some help. The Kanban system, we really just have people speak up if they have issues or questions, and we don't need them to tell us where they're at today or not unless there are issues. Now, they may come in and they may, move stuff on the board so that because they realize, hey, I forgot to move that, that issue over to the development or to transport. So the daily stand-ups are a little different, but the same concept, constant communication among the team. We also recommend, we don't have customers co-located all the time, but we do a lot of communication with the customers. Some people do weekly meetings with the customers. We will do every 2 weeks. We will kind of give demos to the customers and also prioritize features and tell them this is what's being released this week.
This may seem like a very silly question to you, but you mentioned people are moving these Kanban cards on the board. They've got to stick somehow. How do they stick? Do you use magnets, or is it just the Post-it notes, or how do these things stick on the board? Well, I know this is a terribly small detail, but I'm just interested.
Not at all. It's that's funny. We actually use little tacks, and our board is not a cork board, but it's something you can stick tacks into, and so we'll just take the tack out and move it to the next silo and stick it back in, and that's how we do it. Others use Post-it notes. A lot of teams will use Post-it notes, and the cards actually, a lot of teams will also be using colors, and we do that to some extent too, but the colors will mean something. For instance, if I have a problem, I'll take a Post-it note, a red Post-it note, and stick it on my Kanban token, and I'll write on there, this is the problem I'm having. So if we come back the next day and that's still there, we're kind of reminded and say, well, what happened with that? So-and-so was supposed to help out with this issue. Oh, they were sick yesterday, so they couldn't help out, or whatever, but it's another visual reminder that, hey, something's wrong, or, after a test, we might put a green tag on to say this passed the test, so we have 3 features that are going out and 2 have passed. We just need this other one to pass, and then we can do a release.
Is it fair to say that Kanban is not really a completely new methodology, but it's more of a philosophy that you add on top of whatever methodology you already have, be this now in software development, be this in a finance department where you're churning thousands and thousands of invoices, or be this in a production environment where you produce cars. So it's more a philosophy that you add on top of this that's kind of a visual aid that lets you help see where things are and how things are flowing. Or am I making it too simple?
No, I think you've got some good points there. I think the Kanban, the whole idea behind it is the lean frame of mind, which is a philosophy of continuous improvement. And Kanban is just a method to do that. And you're right. If you go to 5 different software shops that implement this, my guess is you're going to see it done 5 different ways. They may have some similar ways, but in talking with people and some of the email lists I'm on, we don't do it exactly the same way as everybody else. There's certain things we want to do, but it's flexible enough. Again, the term agile comes to mind, that we try and work with the people you have and have those people buy into your process. And again, I don't know that I should call Kanban a process, the process Kanban, but our process uses a Kanban board. And it's our process, though. And we've kind of made it into something that works for our team, and I think every team will be a little different. And that's the way I've felt about agile methodologies, too. I don't know that every team always uses exactly all the same methods when they're doing, let's say, Scrum and XP. And maybe I'm talking heresy here, but that's that's the way I see it anyway.
It'll get burnt at the stake.
Right.
Yeah. I just remembered, you mentioned Taichi Ono earlier, the gentleman who is credited with developing just in time. And if I remember correctly, he once said that Kanban is a means through which just in time is achieved. So that kind of reflects what you and I have just said.
Right.
Yeah. Let's talk about something that you personally did. I saw that somewhere on the web, that you have created a Kanban process template for the Microsoft Team Foundation server. Now, Who is this for, and what does it help them with?
That's interesting. It's still kind of in a beta form, if you will. The idea behind it is Team Foundation Server is a development lifecycle type of tool, mainly for Microsoft shops, but also I have heard of Java shops using it. There are plugins for like Eclipse to use Team Foundation Server, but it's a combination of things like source control, which is interesting only to developers, but for project management types, there are a lot of tracking tools. And what gets really interesting is you can have work items that you can relate to your source code in ways like when you check in your source code. So you can actually track features to source code check-ins, which again becomes very interesting as you get into maintenance mode with some of your software. And the Kanban process template actually uses that idea of work items to help you electronically put your Kanban tickets or tokens electronically into Team Foundation Server there's another piece of software called, this is freeware as well, called TFS Sticky Buddy that helps you project your TFS work items and show it in kind of a Kanban board electronically. I need to do some more work on that right now, but that's kind of the idea behind the template, is for people who haven't done a Kanban before, if they're using it and they want to use TFS, it'll help them get started and help them to use this other electronic TFS Sticky Buddy to project their Kanban board electronically, or at least to show it to their remote people. Another way remote people could actually keep track of the Kanban process.
And I believe you're making this available for free, right?
Yes, it's on Codeplex. And I'll tell you what, when this comes out on my blog, I'll try and put links to all the stuff I've mentioned tonight,
okay,
so people can find that.
Yes. Let's move on to a few resources for our listeners who would like to get a little bit more deeper into the Kanban philosophy. Do you know of any good books that you would recommend? Well,
really, if you're looking for just the lean ideas on Kanban, some resources I look at, there's something called the Lean Blog and Lean Blog Podcast that's out there. And boy, I'm not remembering the guy's name, but that's more of a generic thing. It's not software specific. For software specific stuff, a fellow named Corey Lattice, who along with David Anderson has really been instrumental in pushing in developing the concept of Kanban for software development, has just released something called Scrumban. It's a book that takes people who are familiar with Scrum and kind of allows them to, or shows them how you can move from Scrum into the Kanban system. And that, on the software side, that just was released like in the past couple days. So that would be a very good resource. Any online resources, David Anderson's blog, Agile Management, is great. Corey Lattice, his is called Lean Software Engineering, and that's excellent blog on that. A fellow named David Larrabee, who's now working for Version 1, does a lot of blog posts on this as well, and as a matter of fact had his own podcast going over Kanban and software development. So,
okay, so
all kinds. I keep up with those guys pretty regularly.
So we have a number of good resources out there that are available for free to anyone who would like to get a little bit more deeper into this. But the number one resource that we, of course, have to mention is a blog by a gentleman called Eric Landis.
All right.
It's called Corporate Coder, Exploring Agile Methodologies in a Corporate Environment. It's your own blog, and it has a very long email, very long URL. So we're not going to read that out here. Instead, I'm going to put the URL into the show notes, of course, so that people can easily find it. I'll also put all the other items that you mentioned into the show notes. Tell us a little bit about your blog. What do you talk about?
Sure. I talk about a lot of different things. I've been mainly hitting on themes of Kanban and the Kanban process especially for software change management or sustaining engineering, if you want to call it that. Also, I touch on things like the Team Foundation server, so that Kanban process template for TFS. I talk about that. A lot of Microsoft-specific things, but also project management and things like Kanban, just process-type things that I try to hit. One other resource, Cornelius, that I did fail to mention is there's a really great mailing list that I belong to, started by Corey and David. It's called Kanban Dev. It's on the Yahoo groups, and again, I'll get a link to you on that.
We shall put everything up into the show notes so that people can easily find it. Eric, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure talking to you and learning from you about Kanban.
Thanks, Cornelius. Appreciate it.
And that was Eric Landis and our introduction to Kanban. Once again, please stop by at thepmpodcast.com and click on the helpful resources link of today's episode, which is 112, where you will find about 10 or so links to the various resources that Eric recommends. That's it for today. Thank you very much for listening. And if you like our podcast, why not forward it to your friends, co-workers, project management colleagues, or anyone else who might enjoy it. As always, you can find us on the web at thepmpodcast.com. If you are a project manager who wants to become a PMP, then the easiest way to do so is with our sister podcast, the PM Prepcast, and study for the exam by listening to over 90 podcast episodes from pmprepcast.com. And if you are already a PMP, then stop by at pmlectures.com, where we go way beyond just delivering PDUs. We give you the exclusive training from the brightest minds in project management today. And don't forget that you can currently win one of those PM lectures on Twitter. Please send your emails to pmpodcast@gmail.com, and when you write yes, please tell me where in the world you are writing from. And finally, we have this. When you're up to your arse in alligators, it's easy to forget that the project's goal was in fact to drain the swamp. Until next time.